Hello, welcome to Zentangle Explore. My name is Esther Piszczek. I'm a certified Zentangle teacher, and this is a class where we draw one pattern really, really slowly, and it's a Zentangle pattern. So what you will need is a pen. I have a 01 Micron here. I have a Sharpie felt tip, and if you just have a ballpoint off your desk, that is perfect. And a couple pieces of paper. This is watercolor paper, but whatever paper you have is fine. Something you can hold in the palm of your hand, but if you just even have a piece of copy paper or journal paper, that is also perfect. So we're going to begin with a brief meditation so that we can slow down and draw really slow lines. And you can close your eyes if you like, get nice and comfortable in your seat. I'm going to close my eyes and we will just sit and breathe for a few minutes. Just find your inhale, hello, little inhale. Welcome to this moment. Welcome to this day. Welcome to wherever it is that you are, wherever this recording or this live class finds you in the world. Allowing that exhale to just flow freely. Noticing if there's any holding of that exhale. Allow everything just to empty, 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 empty on the exhale. And after a brief little rest, inhale naturally flows in, expanding, nourishing, filling your lungs with oxygen. Expanding the lungs, expanding the back body, perhaps the belly, the chest. And then a little baby rest, tiny little stop at the top of the inhale. After doing all that work, we need to rest. And then the gentle, naturally flow of the exhale. Allowing your breath to be exactly as it is, or just noticing, not changing, not judging, not trying to make it be something other than it is right now. Just noticing length of breath, fullness of breath, perhaps shallowness of breath, speed of breath, texture of breath, perhaps temperature of breath, maybe tone of breath. Maybe you can hear yourself breathing. Really, really listen. Perhaps you can hear yourself breathing. Maybe you can feel coolness or warmth where your breath exits and enters your body. Maybe you can feel clothing rubbing against skin as your body expands and contracts. Maybe you can sense your breath in a surprising part of your body. Maybe elbows or wrists or hips or eyes. And we can direct that breath however we want. Breath naturally comes in through the nose or the mouth. But we can, with our imagination, breathe in through the top of our head and out through our feet. We could breathe in from the palms of our hands and out through our shoulders or our elbows. We could breathe in through our belly and out through our forehead. And each one will have its own separate sensation, its own separate energetic effect. It's a fun little breathing game. And just sense whatever part of you is touching a surface, whether it be a desk or a chair, or the floor, or a bed, or the ground. And just allow yourself, notice yourself sinking into that foundation, feeling the gentle tug of gravity, knowing that you are safe to rest and breathe in this moment. And when you're ready, let's take a big inhale together. And a nice sighing exhale. Oh. Allowing that sound, that vibration. Just give yourself a little internal massage. Nice big inhale together. And a nice sighing exhale. Oh. Allowing that vibration to soothe your nervous system. One last big inhale together. And a nice releasing exhale. Oh. And as you open your eyes, you can open them when you feel ready, knowing that whatever we create together will feel and be perfect just as it is. Okay. Thank you so much for drawing. Oh my gosh, for breathing. We haven't gotten to the drawing yet. Thank you so much for breathing with me. It's so helpful to breathe and slow down in order to draw slow lines. All right, I'm going to change my camera and we will draw. Okay, so I have a couple pieces of watercolor paper here that are just little, but if you just have a big sheet or just copy paper, that's totally fine, whatever works for you. I have more than one in case I want to start a new drawing. I have a Sharpie felt tip that you can just get in an office supply store. I have a 01 Micron, which you could find at an art supply store. I also have a graphic one, which is just a thicker pen. I don't know if I'll use that today, but if you just have just a ballpoint off of your desk, that is absolutely perfect. The supplies are, it's nice to have fun supplies and more expensive supplies, but they are not necessary. What we need is a pen and our breath and a piece of paper, and that is it. All right, so I'm going to start with my 01. This is a pattern called Bzings, Bzings, and it's by Margaret Bremner, who is a certified Zentangle teacher. And it starts with a line, nice slow line. And then the line is going to do something wild and crazy, and it can be whatever you want it to do. I'm just going to pick my line back up, and I'm just going to do this to begin. I'm just going to put a little diversion in the middle of that line and then come back straight. And at the top, there's a little orb. And that orb is going to get filled in black, but I'm going to leave a little white spot, and that little white spot is going to be a little highlight. And I'm slowly going to color this in as we talk about the components of this tangle. So in Explore class, the Zentangle Explore class, we explore one Zentangle pattern, not necessarily my way, but your way. And we do that by recognizing what the components of the tangle are so that we can change them however we want. So in this little Bzing tangle, we have a line, and then we have the part of the line that does something a little wild, whatever you want that to be. And then we have an orb and this little highlight spot somewhere in there, which I just made tinier, which is totally fine. So the line can be as long or as thick or as thin or as you want. There could be multiple lines. You could add an aura to the line, which would be a line that mimics what came before. I'm just going to put a little aura in here to show you what that looks like. So you could add a little aura to that line. You could add some weighting to that line. You can have that line go in any direction and do whatever you would like it to do. Right now I have my little orb attached like a little pin at the top, but it could droop, it could curve, that line could curve, it could droop over, it could point in a completely different direction. Do whatever you want it to do. You are in charge of your pen. This is your piece of paper, and you are in charge of this line. So it can loop. Head at the top. This little Bzing head can go in a different direction. And then ask yourself, this little Bzing head is round. That's the way Margaret Bremner, the creator, designed it, but does it have to be round? Do these have to come from one direction? Maybe it's a square. Maybe the tip of this little Bzing is a triangle or a rectangle. Maybe it's a hashtag mark. Maybe it's peanut shaped. Maybe it's paisley shaped or teardrop shaped. And of course, it's going to change what it looks like, and you get to decide whether or not you like that change or not. Maybe you like the change and maybe you don't like the change. But what the change does, if you like it or if you don't like it, is it teaches you what you like and what you don't like so that you can make a new decision or the same decision when you draw it again. So aside from the orb at the top, this doesn't have a whole lot of black, so you can see I can play with the weighting of this. Come a little closer for you. The weighting of the line. Just drawing so slowly. Maybe this little highlight is in a circle. Maybe it's a different shape. What I love about this drawing practice is I get to create whatever it is I want to create. And that little voice inside that says, what if you did this? What if you did that? What if this shoots right out from the side of the page? I get to practice listening to that voice and acting on it. And through that process of listening and saying yes and acting on what my intuition is asking me to explore, then I get to learn to trust that voice. And there are so many voices in the world saying, do this, listen to that. There's politicians and government leaders and teachers, and including me, and therapists and parents and older siblings and landlords. I mean, realtors, it just goes on and on and on. So many people to listen to. But I would suggest that the most important person to listen to, the most important voice to listen to is your very own. And that this very simple drawing practice is a beautiful way to practice listening to your own voice. And this very simple pattern is an excellent way to explore because it's so super easy and there's so many things that you can change about it that give you information about trying something new. So what if the line goes in this direction? What if it takes this shape? What if it turns into a flower? What if it wants to be a car? What if it doesn't have to have any meaning at all and it just has to be fun? What if drawing the line is just fun? I would say that that is a very valuable line to draw. What if there's more than one orb at the top? What if there are branches? What if there's a whole Bzing tree that shows up on your page? You get to decide. And what you draw need not look anything like what is showing up on my page, because this is an exploration and it is your exploration. I am merely creating the opportunity for you to meet this pattern and begin a relationship. And what that relationship looks like to your pen, to your hand, to you taking time to be creative, that is completely up to you. Whether or not you befriend this pattern and find many, many ways to explore it, or maybe you like it just the way it is and you spend this entire drawing time drawing one pattern one way. You will get very, very good at drawing that pattern that way. And that is a valuable thing to do. because it truly does not matter what you're drawing. It's the listening to that voice inside that says, what if you do this? You can start a new page whenever you like. Maybe the highlight is what is black or a different color. Maybe you start at the top with the orb, because an exploration is not only what you're drawing, but how you're drawing it. And then you draw the stem. Second. Slowing down and breathing, releasing the grip, your hand on the pen. Saying yes to the voice inside that says, what if you do this crazy thing? It might make no sense. Our thinking mind has lots of opinions about what makes sense. Our thinking mind is here to keep us safe, so that's mostly what it's doing. But its idea of safe is not always helpful. If its idea of safe is all about don't draw a line you don't like, that won't be safe, it won't feel good. It's not helpful for an exploratory class, for learning to follow the voice inside that says, hey, let's do something different, let's do something fun, let's be wild and crazy in this very safe way. Because it's just ink on a page. It's all that's happening here, ink on a page. This is a really fabulous pattern for envelopes, backs of envelopes or fronts of envelopes. It's very fun and expressive. It looks like it's bouncing, or it can, depending on how your line goes. The center. I'm going to start a new page with a thicker pen. Just allowing your line and your pen to really show up however they want to, as if you're not even in charge of the decision. It's an exploratory class, so it's the perfect place for that to happen. What if I just watch the pen and see where it's going? Knowing that wherever it goes, I'm going to learn something about lines and drawing with a pen. And that's really all that's happening here. We are learning about holding a pen, drawing with a pen, and expressing lines on the page. And however they look is how they look. They don't have to look a certain way or do a certain thing. And if they begin to look nothing like the actual pattern that we started with, then bravo. That's amazing. because you have discovered something so brand new and unexpected that you couldn't have guessed at the beginning that that's how the line would show up on the page. And that is a true free exploration. And if you're just enjoying drawing this pattern just the way it is and filling the page and maybe creating a grid with it and piling them up or crossing them over, but the form isn't really changing from the original, and I say bravo to you too, because you are also learning something about the pen and your hand and your eye and your inner voice. And this pattern. So there's no wrong way to do this. There's so many wrong ways that society tells us this is the wrong way, that's the wrong way. It's a one-way street, you can't drive that way. That's the wrong way. But it's really nice to come to a practice where there is nothing that could possibly go wrong. When we allow ourselves that freedom, then more interesting things show up on the page. And that inner critical voice becomes quieter. And our explorations become a whole lot more fun and more relaxed. Because our entire structure, the framework that we've set up for drawing has relaxed. All of the shoulds and the have tos and the ought tos, they just go away. And we just allow ourselves to show up on the page just as we are, no matter what that looks like, no matter what it feels like, just allowing whatever that is to be okay. We begin to recognize that how we show up in our life is okay too. I would suggest that the only real wrong way to do this would be to not do it out of fear of not getting it right. And that too is a choice, and every choice is valuable. But exploring And seeing what shows up is way more fun than being afraid to explore. At least I think so. This would be a really fun one to add color to. I love taking patterns that are grids and taking them out of the grid, taking patterns that are organic, putting them in a grid, taking band tangles and releasing them from their bands. It's really fun to see what can happen when we ask a pattern to take a different shape. It's a way to create new patterns, unexpected patterns. And I find it really helpful for creative problem solving in my life. I say, well, I have this tool, it does this thing, this is what it's supposed to do. And you say, well, this tool can actually be used in so many other ways. But if we only think about it in the way that it's supposed to be used, then we never imagine how we can use it differently. Which is why I love exploring, because the simple practice of drawing lines on the page helps me to explore in my life. Which makes life easier and more fun. So just drawing these little bzings can completely turn into a border pattern, or a drawing, or framing a quote, or on the edge of your journal, or on the edge of an envelope. And doesn't come as a border tangle, but that doesn't mean it can't be a border tangle. And exploring helps me to understand that and to do the very risky thing. Oh my goodness. The very risky thing, drawing this pattern in a way it was not imagined by the creator. So fun to discover new things. Life would be so boring. We were just given a certain set of tools, a certain set of rules for those tools, and we could only use them in a certain way. There would be no artists in the world, that is for certain. Although artists find a way around all of the rules and ways to break all of the rules. So I'm guessing that they would find a way to exist anyway. And if you were drawing with me, no matter what skill level you are at, if you were picking up a pen and exploring in this class, then you too are an artist. Artists are those who create art. Therefore, you are an artist. What you are creating is art. It is a visual expression on the page that is coming from inside of you. Therefore, it is art. And it gets to look like whatever you want it to look like. And nobody gets to tell you otherwise. You are a creator, and you are the arbiter of whether or not it exists in the world. And you are the judge and the jury. I would suggest that if you're in charge of all those things, and telling yourself that you are a superstar simply for showing up on the page, it's highly recommended. And if nobody else is going to sing your praises, then it's up to you to do the job. It's up to you to appreciate and value your own work on the page and in your life. And the great news is that no one can stop you from doing it, only you. I'm rather enjoying this pattern. Goodness, the time has flown by. Okay. Oops. All right, here are my explorations. I hope you enjoyed drawing this pattern with me, and maybe you'll keep drawing it for, I don't know, a day, a week, and see where it goes. Thank you so much for drawing with me. If you would like to donate to these classes, you can do so at paypal.me/eternalpossibility. You can find my website and more about me at eternalpossibility.com. And I hope that you add this pattern to at least one envelope, and maybe your grocery list, and maybe your journal, and maybe a birthday card, and maybe you leave it in a library book for somebody else to discover or on the bus. And I hope you enjoyed drawing it, and I hope to draw with you again soon.